Welcome to the Rockabye Revenue Podcast with me, Abby Watson. I'm a mum of 4 and a business strategist, and I train people to become hypnobirthing teachers. In the last decade, I've built a thriving baby business that grew beyond my wildest dreams. This podcast is for you if you run a business or dream of running a business in the birth and baby industry. You want to change lives whilst making more money. I'm talking about creating sustainable income whilst being present for the people that matter most. I believe for our baby businesses to have the impact we desire, we must be rewarded. On this podcast, expect me to share actionable strategies without the jargon. I've been where you are. I've built a business while raising 4 little ones, and now I'm here to help you turn your passion into profit while creating the life you've always dreamed of. So let's get started. Hello, lovely one. How are you doing today? I am glad you are listening to this episode, because if what I'm talking about has never happened to you, it may very well happen, and I want you to know how to deal with it without it knocking your business confidence. So today we're talking about the truth about being ghosted. Now, what do I mean by ghosted? Well, I mean when you've been messaging someone or you've been in contact with someone, perhaps they want to book your services, and then they go absolutely silent. They ghost you. They've vanished. They've disappeared, it seems. And, of course, this can happen in life just as it can happen in business. And the reason I'm talking about this this morning is I have very much, or I should say we have very much been ghosted in our house selling experience. So I mentioned a good few weeks ago that we'd put our house on the market, our beloved house, our house that we love so much. We've put it on the market because our life is just so hectic with all the blooming school runs that happen to be miles away. We want a future where actually that is not part of our everyday reality. And the only way to do that is to move house. So we've put our house on the market, and believe me, it is like the last thing we could do with right now. Like selling a house, finding a new one, and all that comes with that is a lot. Like, we did it last 4 years ago, and really, it was quite straightforward, but oh my gosh, despite how straightforward it was still so stressful. Like, the logistics of packing up a house, the admin side of it, the kind of like unknowns, the uncertainty till the final day. Oh my gosh, it's just so stressful. But anyway, we've made this decision to put the house on the market, and we know that it gives us options at least. So the house went on the market probably like mid-September, and we got a viewing right away, and this lovely couple came to view the house. I did the viewing, and the day that they were coming, I was like, oh my God, you could not write this. Literally, the road leading up to our house was blocked by one of the neighbours that was doing some work on his house, and literally that never happens. The road is never blocked. It blooming would be, wouldn't it, when you're having a house viewing? So it obviously looks like that's what always happens. As a result, every single neighbour is out on the street, and it then looks like it's a really busy place to live. It's not. It's not. Yes, we have lovely, friendly neighbours, But ultimately, it's a place where you get best of both. It's a very quiet, tranquil place to live, yet we do have lovely, friendly neighbours. So yes, I was like, oh my God, you couldn't write this. They're going to be well put off by the fact they have to walk up the hill to come and view the house. Anyway, they arrived and I couldn't have been more wrong. They were not put off by that. Actually, it allowed them to have a little chat with the neighbours. It got them, to see the setting of the home. Yeah, actually, it did not put them off at all. And the viewing went amazingly. Even the things that, can not put people off, but be a bit of a Marmite thing, was such a positive for them. So an example of that is that instead of a regular oven, we have an Aga, which I love. Some people are like, what even is that? How do you work it? Is it going to make your energy bills higher? All that. And so it's a bit of a it can put them off. For this couple, that was an absolute selling point. They were in love with it. I showed them around everything. It was like tick, tick, tick. They were so enthusiastic about it. They were talking about future plans. So it was such a positive viewing. And I knew in my heart that they'd be back. And I was right. Literally, I think it was the day after, the estate agent rang to say they want to come again. So just a few days later, they did a second viewing, even more positive, and they were talking to me about offers and all this. So when they left, I had a call from the estate agent saying that they'd put an offer in, and they'd actually offered us full asking price, which was just fantastic. However, they had not yet sold their house. So they were wondering if we would be willing to pause viewings, give them exclusivity for a limited time to give them chance to sell their house. Okay. Now, because this couple was so invested in the house, and because, and this probably isn't a very strategic viewpoint, but because I liked them so much and could see them living here so much. They had 2 small children, very similar position to when we moved into this house. This house is such a dream for kids. I wanted them to have it, and even if it didn't make logical sense to pause any further viewings, it just made so much sense to me. And I know some of you might be listening to this thinking, Abby, you're bonkers. Don't, essentially take your house on the market for someone who is not in a position to proceed. Why would you do that? Well, it just felt right. It just absolutely felt right. And from a personal perspective, it also felt a bit like, right, well, now the pressure's on them, not us, Showing everyone around the house, all this kind of capers that take time, take energy, would suddenly be released from me, and then it'd be down to them to have the hecticness of trying to sell their house. So it made sense, made perfect sense, and there was no doubt in my mind that they, weren't going to try the best they possibly could to quickly sell their home so that they got this house. Because in their words, they didn't want to sell their house and not have a dream house to go to. And this, they felt, was their dream. And I know that because this house was my dream too. And it deserves to have someone that loves it just as much as we did or do. So yeah, that's what happened. And, with everything that's been going on with the kids and particularly my eldest son, and fighting for him an education and him being out of school and all the emotions that come with that and the work that comes with that, I did breathe a sigh of relief and felt like, okay, this is one thing now that's going well, you know? The house is one thing now that is going well. And so many other people also felt that. So when I told, you know, family members, friends, they were like, oh, I'm so pleased this is working out for you, Abby. I've got such good vibes about it. Okay. And I did. Now, I don't know the address of where these people live. Of course I don't. But I knew a lot about where they particularly lived and what their house was like and all this. So, you know, being a bit of a detective, you know, I, of course, kept my eye on Rightmove because I wanted to see when their house was popping up so that I could see that, you know, they were making progress to sell their house. Now, a few weeks went by and my refreshing of Rightmove did not, you know, show me any houses that looked anything like what they described. So, you know, maybe you're listening to this thinking, Abby, you are a weirdo, you are a stalker. Just leave them alone. But of course, I wanted to feel like, you know, they were doing their bit because I didn't want to just be sat here for a few months saying no to viewings and actually they're not even bothering putting their house on the market quickly. So a few weeks went by and I was like, it's definitely not on the market. So I contacted our estate agent and I was like, have you heard from these buyers? Are they definitely, you know, still wanting the house? Because I'm not sure they've even listed their house. So my estate agent was like, you're right. She did know their address. And she was like, you're right, it's not on there. I'll follow up with them because obviously, you know, they'd made an arrangement to keep our estate agent updated. So she emailed them, heard nothing back. Rang them, they didn't answer their phone. Left voice messages, no response. So she let me know and she was like, but, you know, don't worry. Like, they were really invested. You know, it may be that, you know, they're just, you know, getting their house ready to sell and maybe they're not great at, you know, replying back to messages. I just had a feeling though. I did. You know, they were so keen. Why would they not be replying to messages? And it felt frustrating. It did. Like, I felt like, oh, I'd just rather know. So we know where we stand. We can decide whether, well, obviously we can, you know, then decide to have people viewing the house. There might be somebody else that wants it. You know, we're potentially losing people. So, yeah. And the estate agent has continued to make contact with these buyers and heard nothing back. So it's official, you know, we've been ghosted. And it really made me think about how similar this is to when this happens in your business. You know, you have that potential client that maybe you've spoken to a number of times and they are so invested. You know they need what you offer and they are like, I am in, you know? And then they seem to disappear off the face of the earth and you are left wondering, have you been there? I know I have many, many times, and I know that I will continue to be because ultimately it's human nature, and we'll come back to that in a moment. But I really want to talk to, the person listening today that has had this happen to them in their business and has made it mean so much more than it really does mean. And it's knocked them, and it's like even made them change things around in their business when it's really unnecessary to do that. So let's take the example, you have this inquiry and you've been messaging this person and they're so keen, they go away to, maybe speak to their partner or to sort out finances. They come back to you and then you reply and nothing. And maybe in, excellent sales practice, you go back to them a few days later and you check in and you ask if they would like to reserve their spot. And nothing. Crickets. Absolute silence. So you sit there thinking, oh my gosh, have I been too keen? Have I repelled them by my over-keenness? Do I even look desperate? Maybe you look back at the messages and you're like, oh my God, it's that bit. Oh my God, I put a kiss at the end. It's that. They think I'm a weirdo, Or you start thinking, oh my gosh, it's my pricing. My prices are too high. They've ghosted me because of them. And now everybody's going to ghost me because I'm just unaffordable. Yeah? We tell ourselves all these stories. They don't like me. They think I'm not qualified enough. They think I'm unprofessional. Or they've had a look at my, social media and they actually think, I'm a scally. I actually think I'm a scally. Does anyone say that? No, I bet. I don't think they do. But you basically sat there thinking of all these stories. You are deciding that person is sat there thinking, I'm not going to reply to her because her prices are too high, because she's a bit weird, because she's desperate. She's so desperate for my custom. It's weird. So you sat there telling yourself all these stories when in fact the reality is it's human nature to be ghosted sometimes. And that might be for a few reasons that you might not have considered. The first reason, my goodness, these days we are flooded with so much information, right? So your potential client that has been in contact with you, she's potentially being fed lots of different information from lots of different sources. She logs into Instagram and, she's seeing this other information about this different form of birth prep or this different baby class. And she's going to investigate that now. And she's distracted and she's overwhelmed, And all these excessive options and all this excessive amount of information to process leads to overwhelm, leads to almost like this cognitive overload that means that actually silence feels the only way to deal with it, in this extremely noisy world. Sometimes just getting back to someone feels too much. That, my friend, is nothing to do with you. It's nothing to do with how lovely and brilliant and qualified and amazing your services are. It's nothing to do with the way that you replied or whether you put a kiss or didn't put a kiss, whether you put an emoji in your message or not. It's nothing to do with that. It's because of the wider world. Also, we do not know the circumstances of why somebody ghosted us. We don't know what was really going on. Yet we are making stories about what we think is going on, when actually life might have been lifing. Someone might have got ill in their home. The washer might have leaked all over the kitchen floor. All these things that take their focus, take their time. We don't know about that. And that absolutely goes for my situation, doesn't it, with the house sale? Potentially they could still get back to us. And maybe life has been lifing and it's nothing to do with the house and the situation and them potentially changing their mind about moving at all. It might be that their plans have just been put on hold and actually they're finding it difficult to communicate that. It might be that something else, like those things, has become their priority. Yeah? So something might have cropped up in life that, needs research, needs attention, and that might be their priority right now. So that potential client that has disappeared off the face of the earth, well, actually they haven't. Something else has come up in their life perhaps, and they are taking their focus, dealing with that. Have you ever ghosted anyone? I know I have. If I'm really honest with you, I'm a regular ghoster, I think. And certainly in the last 2 years, I have been a serial ghoster. And that is because things have taken my priorities, Things have become my priority, and that has meant that I just haven't had the bandwidth sometimes for being on the ball with personal messages, with getting back to that hairdresser, for getting back to that class, the after school club that I inquired about. That is nothing to do with the thing that I originally inquired about. It's to do with my stuff. And this absolutely might be the case for your situation too. Now, when we are ghosted, it always does make sense to think, are there any lessons here? Well, firstly, the lesson might be where they came from, there'll be more. There'll be more clients where they came from. And that's exactly what I'm taking from this house sale thing. I went into this thinking, oh gosh, we might have 10 viewings and, they might not be interested. And actually we had one viewing and they loved it. And yeah, maybe it hasn't turned out how I would like, but there will be more people like that. There will be more people out there. Plenty more fish in the sea, as they say. And that is true for you too. So even if the inquiry that you had ghosts you and you follow up and you continue to hear nothing, let it be your evidence that there are people out there that want your stuff. And they won't all end up ghosting you. So where they came from, there will be more. And you can absolutely take that from your experience. Now, is there anything practical we can learn from it that we can do going forward to prevent situations like that? Well, sometimes no, and sometimes yes. So earlier I talked about, how we are in this time with information overload. So could it be that actually you reflect on your booking processes and you think, am I making it easy enough? Is there some way I could make this back and forth a lot easier so people have less opportunities to fall off the end of the earth? You know, if I'd have taken a deposit sooner, would this have happened? So having that honest reflection about whether there is something that you could practically take from this. As well, making sure that even though maybe you're feeling a little bit hurt by being ghosted, maybe you're feeling a little bit frustrated by being ghosted, it doesn't force you into silence too. Yeah? They're ghosting you. Don't use it as an excuse to ghost everyone else. Don't use it as a reason to feel like follow-ups are too pushy. Follow-ups are useful. And if I go back to this house situation, remember what the estate agent said to me in the early days of following them up. She'd followed them up, phone, email, not heard anything back. And she said, don't panic, don't worry. I'll continue to get in touch with them. There was no like, oh, you know, we've communicated with them on 2 platforms, so actually, you know, enough now. They're not interested. She didn't make a theory, a decision based on what she thought. She stuck to the facts. We don't know. So we'll continue to try and find out. We'll continue to follow up. And you can absolutely do that too. Now, remember what I said about how sometimes we can make up stories and we can actually inhibit our business going forward with this. Please don't tell yourself it's about your price and then go and slash your prices. Please don't tell yourself it's because you're being over friendly and then change all your responses to a ChatGPT response, because there is no evidence to suggest that is why. So do not change your business and how you do things based on zero evidence. Certainly do not decrease your prices because you are assuming that's why they have disappeared. When in actual fact, life might have happened. They've got distracted. Or, let's face it, sometimes ignoring feels easier, more comfortable for people than being honest. You know? And that's not personal. And again, it can simply be human nature. But let's not make it mean more than it actually does. Like I said at the start of this, I've been ghosted in my business many times. I've also ghosted other people. You might have. And it's not because, you know, of any of the reasons perhaps we're telling ourselves when someone ghosts us. So please don't make this too personal, because it very, very rarely is. And do not let this pull you off the mission, distracted from your dreams and what you want from your business. Don't let that happen. You've been ghosted. One day you'll probably be ghosted again. And that's okay, because it happens to us all. It happens to us all. And of course, it gets a bit easier, because eventually we have so much evidence that, you know, there'll be more where they came from. But for now, trust me that actually there will be more where they came from. So keep going. And as always, keep on changing lives. See you next time. Bye. Thank you for listening to Rockabye Revenue. I hope this episode has left you with some fresh ideas and bundles of motivation. If you enjoyed this episode, do make sure you click subscribe so you never miss an installment. And if you found this episode useful, I'd love you forever if you leave a 5-star review, helping this podcast reach the ears of more of the helpers in this world. And remember, keep changing lives. See you next time.